First time moms, this one's for you. 5 funny fails looking back at my life as a new mom. I have 6 children now, so I've come a long way, but I'm looking back in retrospect. Hindsight is always 2020. We can look back with maturity and look at some of those life lessons and see the deeper meaning in them. Number 1, I actually thought that I was a good person until I had my firstborn son. You know, you don't see what is in your heart until you are confronted by this little human who is so dependent on you and is honestly so selfish. You know, little babies, they poop and they pee and they cry and they eat. And my first child was very colicky, very fussy. His stomach was very upset all of the time. A lot of times I would be carrying him and he would puke and it would fall right down my back. I mean, it would get in my hair and everything. And then I got to the point where I was like, you know what, whatever. He's gonna do it, so I'll just let him do it a couple times before I go and change. I know that sounds disgusting, but I'm like, let's consolidate some of this vomit, and I'll, instead of showering and getting redressed and everything over and over again, I'll just wait a little bit. But I remember, yes, thinking that I was a good person until I had him. I remember being up with him in the middle of the night, just so frustrated with the breastfeeding, and it wasn't working for me, and he was so fussy, and this is not how I imagined this baby being, like I wanted to be I wanted to be a mother since I was like 4 years old, and dolls, they don't do a baby any justice. He would just cry and cry so often, and yeah, I was confronted with who I really am. I had to grapple with, Jesus, I need you. I thought I was good, but I am so far from good. But it is such a humbling experience having that first baby, one that I will obviously never take back. Now I have 6. I only wanted 2. Back when I was in high school, I only wanted 2 children. And somewhere along the line, I was like, I really love this. And it got easier, and I learned some things, and I just fell in love with being a mom. But number 1, yes, I thought I was a good person until I had my first baby. Second story I have for you today. My first baby, Elijah, he, like I said, was up all night with a fussy tummy. All of this, we couldn't make him happy. I tried my best. I mean, I think holding him and jostling him was the best. I mean, he's 10 years old now, but if my memory, if I can recall correctly, he liked being jostled and held all the time. So I am this new mom, and I can never set this baby down. I didn't realize or know that I could let my children cry. I mean, I don't believe in the cry it out method now. I've learned some things, but sometimes you need to just step away. I didn't realize that. Well, anyways, he was up a lot during the night, and I wasn't getting the breastfeeding figured out. And this one night, well, actually it was in the morning, I woke up and I was like, oh, I didn't sleep at all. And my husband was the one who had been up with Elijah. So it's kind of a funny story. My husband looks back now and he's like, yeah, it's really funny you said that, because you weren't even up with him. I think it was a Friday night or a Saturday night or something like that, which shows you with the whole breastfeeding thing that I was not doing it right. Because with Sarah, I set my alarm and I was up every 3 hours with her. That is how you build your breast milk. That is how you get things going. But I did not understand that, obviously. But when you're a first-time mom, you're like so exhausted. And I thought I had been up, but I wasn't. And even when you are sleeping, you're not really resting, and fully, because part of your mind is somewhere else. So yeah, we look back and we laugh at that one. I really didn't feel like I slept. Are you like that? Do you struggle with sleeping? See my yogurt video that I did for restless, sleepless nights? I got you covered there. But yes, This next story I have for you is kind of an alarming one. It was another one that really humbled me, but Elijah, my firstborn baby, he was like a week old, maybe 2 weeks old, maybe even younger than that. And my mom and I, were excited. This is her first grandbaby of mine. She has other grandkids, but it's, we're really close. And so it's her first grandbaby that is my child. And I, you're a new mom, you want to go out and do these things, and so we wanted to go to Old Navy, but the closest Old Navy is a city that at that time was like 60 to maybe even more miles than that away from where we lived. I live a little closer to that town now, but where we were living now, it was quite far, a couple hours. We put Elijah in the car and all of this, and we're gonna go shopping, and I got this baby, and it's not a doll, it's a real baby, and it's just great. And we do the driving, we get there, Elijah was fine in the car, whatever. We get there, and then I go to get him, and I realize he's not even buckled in. I didn't even buckle him in. What? I felt, well, first of all, I was like, thank you, God, that nothing happened, that we didn't get in a car accident. But my second thing is, oh my goodness, God has given me this little baby and I am going to mess this up. Such a humbling experience looking back. Like I said, he's 10 years old now. Love him, the most charismatic, wild of my children. But yeah, some of those things that you do when you're a first-time mom, you look back and you're like, oh my goodness, what was God thinking giving me a baby? Like, I feel like I'm a baby, and here God is giving me a baby, and you think you're ready, but then you do these things that just, yeah. Story number 4, not very funny when you really think about it, but you have to laugh. I mean, as mothers, you just got to roll your eyes and be like, oh my goodness, like what in the world? But there was this one year, this was the first, I think Elijah was 1, maybe turning 2. And we had to call poison control within 2 weeks, 2 times in 2 weeks. And how humiliating is that? I guess it's kind of funny, but it is definitely a failure, a new mom failure. I tried to be diligent, but those little babies, when they start crawling, they find everything. So the first thing Elijah got into was a sticky trap, a mouse. But that stuff, there's goo in there. And so my husband and I were worried, well, did he eat some of it? So we called first time. The second time we called, he had gotten into a bottle of vitamins, and I don't even know how many he ate, and I shouldn't laugh because this isn't funny, side note, my 5th baby, Sarah, which has been in some of my videos, she just got into a bottle of vitamins too. We don't know how many she ate, but I ended up having to call poison control with her. You try to be diligent, you try to put things up, but those sneaky little kids, they get into everything. And the older ones were supposed to be watching her. They weren't, and she got into them. Then another time I was mowing the lawn and she's getting into the cupboards in the bathroom, getting into stuff like vitamins, and they were luckily in those capsules, but it's a good grief. Am I even a fit mother? But all was well. We had called poison control and they said everything was fine, but it's like you look at some of those moments and you're like, oh God, help me. My final story that I have for you today actually includes my second child, Elizabeth, but I would still call myself a new mom because they're 13 months apart. I got pregnant with her 3 months after I had him. I did not know what I was doing yet. I still don't know what I'm doing sometimes, but this is kind of a cute story. So you know how you give your kids snacks or whatever? And so they're watching this movie and they have a bowl of Cheerios. And you're running around trying to get things done. Now Elijah has someone to play with, so he's not so needy, and he's grown out of all the fussiness, that stage. So he's got a friend, and they're just like, the dynamic duo, those two. I mean, I think they could pass as twins because they're so close in age. But anyways, they come to me and they're like, Mom, I want some more Cheerios, or somehow they tell me. And so I kid you not, I stopped whatever I was doing, went and got the Cheerio box, and then I come over I come over on the floor, squat down, and I fill up their bowls, and then I just stand up, and then I realize, like, my children are not dogs. Like, I did not just fill up their bowl. They grab their bowls and they run off and they're happy. But it just felt like I was it just felt like I was filling up a dog dish, but I didn't even think of it, and I mean, they all turned out fine, yeah, those things that we do as new moms, we look back and we have those memories. Pro tip that I have for you is have a journal and write down these cute things, the memories, the stories, and then when your kids start saying things, write those funny things down and then put their age in parentheses. You will look back and be so grateful that you did those things. I have a couple other tips for you. First tip, and these both have to do with being humble. First tip is don't be afraid to tell your toddlers sorry, or even your young children. We make mistakes, Mommy wasn't right. But right on the tail end of that, my tip is don't say sorry too much, because then you undermine your authority. Find that balance with your children. Constantly be trying to grow on your own so that we can get to the place where we're not constantly saying sorry for our behavior, but yeah, I know that sounds strange. Don't say sorry too much. There is a balance where we don't want to undermine our authority to our children. Like, Mom just doesn't know anything, and she's not a very good leader. Some of that we can keep to ourselves, and we can just pray and be like, God, help me, and we can grow on our own without our children knowing everything. We can pray in our heart and ask God for forgiveness, and we are more than okay. But we also need to balance that with humbling ourselves to our children too, so that our children know that we know that we're not perfect, because we're not perfect. Feel free to check out some of the items that I had as a new mother that I have linked below, as well as a couple items that I wish I would have had. Elijah was super colicky as a baby. Well, those Mr. Brown's colic bottles are so awesome. I did talk about them in another video.